The Evil Dead franchise has a contract with its audience. You come in, you sit down, and the film destroys you, physically, repeatedly, with genuine creative enthusiasm for finding new and inventive ways to use everyday objects as instruments of absolute horror. That contract has never been broken in 45 years. 6 films in, it is not broken here. Evil Dead Burn is the most extreme, most visceral, most physically punishing entry in the franchise's history. Whether that's a recommendation or a warning depends entirely on who you are. Here's the setup. Alice, played by Souheila Yacoub, who you may know from Gaspar Noé's Climax, has recently lost her husband Will. In grief, she travels to New Zealand to stay with his family, his parents Edgar and Susan, his grandmother Polly, and his brother Joseph. From the first scene, it's clear this is not a warm welcome. Will's family barely tolerated Alice when he was alive. Now that he's gone, they're making no effort to pretend. What Alice doesn't know, what none of them know, is that Will's death set something in motion. A dagger belonging to Will's grandfather, a researcher who spent his life studying the Book of the Dead, has been uncovered. The Deadites sense its existence. They come for it, and one by one, the family that's never wanted Alice begins to change into something that very much wants her dead. Sébastien Vaniček directed this after his extraordinary 2023 film Infested, a claustrophobic spider horror set in a Paris apartment block that announced him as a major new talent. Sam Raimi saw Infested, gave him this franchise, and stepped aside. That trust is both the film's greatest asset and in places its most complicated one. Let me tell you what this film gets genuinely brilliantly right, because when it's good it is extraordinary. The set pieces. There is a sequence in a car, Edgar, freshly possessed, locked in a vehicle with Alice. That is the best single scene in the Evil Dead franchise since the 2013 remake Self-Amputation. Every part of a car becomes a weapon. The seatbelt, the airbag, the sunroof, the headrest. Vaniček has thought with genuine ingenuity about what these objects can do to a human body, and he executes the sequence with a precision that is both nauseating and genuinely impressive. RogerEbert.com called it movie best and said it almost justifies the ticket cost alone. That's accurate. There's also an unbroken shot. Alice crawling through a dining room while chaos erupts all around her, bodies falling, deadites screaming, the camera tracking her at floor level. That is technically extraordinary. This is a director who understands space and movement in a way most horror filmmakers don't. Souheila Yacoub as Alice is carrying this film entirely on her back, and she does it magnificently. This is a physically demanding, emotionally complex role. A woman who is grieving, guilt-ridden, and surrounded by people who resent her, who then has to process all of that while also fighting off supernatural demonic possession. Yacoub makes every layer visible simultaneously. She is never just the final girl. She is always the specific person this happened to. And there's a thematic intelligence underneath all the carnage that elevates this above pure gore. The Deadite possessions function as a xenophobia allegory. The family's simmering resentment of Alice as an outsider, a foreigner, a woman who took their son away, amplified and made literal by demonic possession. The film is also, quietly, about domestic abuse, about what it costs Alice to finally name what her relationship with Will actually was. This is not a film that mistakes brutality for meaning. It uses brutality to access meaning. That's the Evil Dead tradition at its best. Now here's where I have to be straight with you, because the problems in this film are real and they are not minor. The visual palette is a genuine creative misstep. RogerEbert.com described it as so grey that one starts to wonder if the operating aesthetic was ash. That's accurate. Where Evil Dead Rise was dark but visually alive, using colour and contrast to generate dread, Evil Dead Burn is visually flat in a way that keeps the film from connecting on the visceral level it's reaching for. Even the blood looks too dark. The washed-out cinematography by Philip Lazario is the single biggest technical disappointment in a film this interested in overwhelming your senses. The editing is also clunkier than the set pieces deserve. Awkward slow-motion choices arrive at moments that should be kinetic. The connective tissue between sequences, the scenes where characters make decisions and move from location to location, is handled with much less care than the sequences themselves. And Vaniček, for all his talent, has not yet found a way to pace an Evil Dead film for 2 hours without the relentlessness becoming exhausting before the finale. The character decisions are also the dumbest in recent franchise memory. Alice regularly attempts to save characters who have very clearly been possessed, not ambiguously possessed, not maybe they can be saved possessed, but fully rotting, screaming in an inhuman register possessed. Because the film needs them present to reveal more of her backstory. It's a structural problem dressed as character motivation and it strains credibility repeatedly. And Variety raised the point that stings most. The gonzo comedy of the original Raimi films is entirely absent. Evil Dead 2 was practically a slapstick comedy. There's not a single moment of levity in Evil Dead Burn. For some viewers that's a feature. For me it's a missing frequency that the film never quite recovers. Here's where I land. Evil Dead Burn is the most physically extreme film in a franchise that has always defined itself by going further than anyone else. The car sequence is extraordinary. The crawling Wanner is technically brilliant. Souheila Yacoub is a genuine revelation. The xenophobia allegory and the domestic abuse subtext give the film a thematic weight that the gore alone could never sustain. And Sébastien Vaniček is clearly a filmmaker of real talent operating in a franchise that deserves exactly this kind of passionate, inventive directorial attention. But the washed-out visual palette, the clunky editing, the dumb character decisions, and the complete absence of humour make this the most exhausting Evil Dead film to sit through. 2 hours of relentless, humourless, visually grey carnage is a specific experience that not everyone will want to repeat. This is an Evil Dead film for the faithful. If you've seen every entry and you know what the contract is, go. The car sequence alone is worth it. If you're newer to the franchise, start with the 2013 remake, then Evil Dead Rise, then come here, and stay through the credits. There is something after them that the franchise faithful will appreciate. I am not going to tell you what it is. I'm giving Evil Dead Burn a 6.5 out of 10. Go in with your eyes open, and maybe not right after dinner. Like the video if this helped, subscribe for weekly reviews, and tell me in the comments, what is your favourite Evil Dead film and why? Because I have strong opinions and I want to know if you agree, especially about Evil Dead 2. See you next time.